Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to the second workshop of the Innovate with Ballerina competition. We are thrilled to have you join us today as we continue our journey of exploring the power and versatility of Ballerina. This competition is not only a platform to showcase your innovative ideas, but also an opportunity to gain deep insights from industry experts who are at the forefront of modern software development. A quick question before we dive in. Have you joined our first workshop? If so, we hope it clarified all your questions about Ballerina and its core capabilities. And if you still have any doubts, feel free to bring them up today as well, as we are here to help you master Ballerina. We are incredibly fortunate to have with us today some brilliant minds from WSO2 who will share their knowledge and experiences to guide you through the potential of Ballerina. Let me introduce our speakers for today's workshop. First, we have Mr. Sasindu Alahakoon, the Senior Software Engineer at WSO2. Next, we have Mr. Poorna Gunathilaka, a talented software engineer at WSO2. Finally, we are privileged to have Mr. Gimantha Bandara, the Senior Technical Lead at WSO2. So without further ado, I'll hand things over to our speakers to take us through today's workshop. Over to you, Mr. Sasindu, Mr. Poorna, and Mr. Gimantha.
Thank you, Jamatu. And welcome you all to the session. And before we dive into today's session, we would like to go through the stuff that we did last session. And let me share my screen. Okay. Do I have the permission to share my screen? I don't see. Okay, got it. No worries. Okay. Give me a minute. I will have to rejoin the meeting because I think there's a permission issue. I will quickly rejoin and share my screen. Okay, let me try it again. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see you.
Yeah, okay. So if we go through what we did in the last workshop, let's recall what we did there. And we actually discuss what backend development is, and also we studied few of the use cases where we can use Ballerina, and also we had some hands-on sessions on creating a Ballerina service and how you would create a Ballerina service with a database and how you would connect with the database and retrieve the data. So in today's session, we are going a bit deeper into these concepts. We would first go through how we would create an Ballerina project and how we would create separate modules and how you would reuse these modules. And then we would go into the language concepts, and after that we would have a little bit long session on how would create a Ballerina service with a MySQL database. So this has been a question in the last session on how would create a Ballerina service and how would create connect with the MySQL database. So we would go into that, and also we would use WebSockets for real-time communications. So when we say real-time communication, what would come to your mind will be a chat application, but we will not go in that way. You can do that, and but here we are going to do is we would simply present you a simple use case, and Sasindu will be doing that. And also we would use this REST service to demonstrate you how you could use authentication on that. So I will hand over this session to Poorna to continue on how you would manage Ballerina packages and how you would reuse them with your team members, because we need to actually present this to you, because you're working on this hackathon as teams, right? So then you would actually develop a module that you can reuse and your team could reuse, but the best way to reuse them through using our specific tools. So this will be covered by Poorna session. So Poorna, this is for you. Okay, I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you. So I'll share my screen. Hope my screen is visible. Hope my screen is visible and I'm also audible.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Thanks. So I'll be talking about the project structure of a Ballerina project. Like this is also a question that was raised previously. And I'll also talk about how to reuse the Ballerina code within multiple Ballerina projects, as Gimantha said. So first, about a Ballerina project. So Ballerina project is a way that you can structure your code. So like in Ballerina, you can like write a simple single file that's just for testing. But when you're actually developing code in Ballerina, you have to write Ballerina in a Ballerina project. So that is where Ballerina projects come in, and you can create a new project using this new command. And when you are creating a Ballerina project, you can use templates that are available in Ballerina. For example, if you want to develop a service in Ballerina, you can use this service template for that. You can pass this -t flag when you are using this new command and pass the option that you want to generate. In this case, I have used this option service to generate a service project here. So I'll quickly demonstrate how you can do these things in Ballerina with a simple example. So I'll go into my code. Hope you can see my code as well. So I can use this new command to create a new project. In this instance, I'll name it demo1. Then I'll open this demo1 in VS Code. So what happens is when you do a new command, there'll be a sort of the default template would contain a hello world with a main function. And there's also this file called ballerina.toml. So we also like talked about this briefly last time, and this ballerina.toml sort of stores the metadata information about your program. So in this case, it's the auth name, the name of the project version, and the distribution that you are using in Ballerina. And also like in this main.file, rather than main.file, you can create multiple Ballerina projects in this folder. Like for example, I create a foo.bal file. And if I just simply like implement a foo function in this file, which returns a string. And the thing is, like when you define multiple Ballerina files in the same same directory, you can access those files in other Ballerina files that are defined in the same directory. So in this foo.bal file, I defined a function called foo. So in this main.bal file, I can access that function as well. So I can just do something like this. Let's just say that I also want to define a function like this here. And this would you actually give an compilation error because there's already a function called foo in the foo.bal file. So that's how like sort of scopes words in Ballerina. When you have multiple Ballerina files in the same directory, the functions that are defined in a certain file is available to other files in uh, uh, directory as well. It's not limited to function, it's same for variables as well. And there are other concepts, other files that you, configuration files in Ballerina that you can use. Like, I think for mostly for you like something like config.toml files, something like cloud.toml files would matter. So I'll briefly explain about those two files as well. So in a Ballerina project, you can have a file called config.toml, which stores set of configuration variables in your project. So if I take an example from Node.js, you would understand what a configuration variable is. So let's just say that you are connecting to a database using your Ballerina code. And when you're connecting to a database, you might have sensitive information like passwords that you want to store. And it's not the best practice to write those passwords in the code itself. You should like write it in the plain text in your code. So it's not very secure. It's not a very secure practice to do that. So to handle such cases, Ballerina introduces this thing called configurable variables. So I can store a password like this in Ballerina, where I, rather than providing the actual value here, I have provided question mark here. So I don't actually provide the actual password value in the code itself. I can define a function, file called config.toml here, in which I write all those passwords, which I can define that password there. And if I simply print it out, so, and it would print out the value pass. So, and when you share this Ballerina project with others, you don't usually share this config.toml file, so your password is secure. And not only the sensitive information like passwords, you can also store something like configuration variables, like let's just say something like a database host name. Like it might vary based on your environment that you're deploying your code. For a local environment, it can be localhost, and for the production, it can be something other than that. So those sorts of information also you usually store in this config.toml file. And the other file that I thought about is this cloud.toml file. So what cloud.toml file does is when you want to generate a Docker image from a Ballerina project, you use this cloud.toml file. So that's the overall idea about a Ballerina project. So in a Ballerina project, in the same directory, you can define multiple Ballerina files, and the variables and functions defined in one file in the directory is available for other files as well. And there's this config.toml file and cloud.toml file that you can use to store configuration variables, as well as cloud.toml file to generate Docker images for your use case. So that's the basic idea of Ballerina projects. I'll go back to my slides. Okay, now I'll talk about the concept called modules in Ballerina. So modules is something like when you want to group a set of functionalities together in a Ballerina project, you create a module for that. Like let me take an example from Node.js. So let's just say that you are developing a backend with Node.js, and you have this sort of utility functions and database access functions and authentication providing functions, and you might actually create some folders to store the code of those functions. So you, in your project structure, you might have a directory called utils, auth, and db, so on and so forth. So Ballerina modules is something similar to that. So in a Ballerina project, when you want to group set of functionalities together, you create a Ballerina module. So how you can do that is you go into the Ballerina project and you use this ballad command to create a new Ballerina module. So I'll demonstrate this concept of modules through an example. So my example would be a simple service that performs date and time calculation. For simplicity, I have only provided two endpoints. One endpoint just increments the time by a given, so let's just say that user provides a time to this endpoint, and also user provides a number of hours and number of minutes, and the output that we give should be the number of should be the time that is calculated after increasing the time by given number of hours and minutes. And this increment date endpoint, what it does is user again gives a date for this, and then we increment the date by the given number of weeks and given number of days by the user, and finally give the output the incremented date. So in this Ballerina project, I have created two separate modules to have the logic for time calculations, another module to do the calculations for date. I'll also demonstrate this with the code. So previously I said when I'm creating a Ballerina project, new Ballerina project, I can use these templates. So in this case, I'm creating a service. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this template to create a new Ballerina project, Ballerina. Here in this case, my template will be a service. I'll just name it as demo2. And I'll open it VS Code. So here, this is the default code for a service in Ballerina. And these are some default resource functions. And there's this test directory as well. For the moment, I'll also delete that. And in my service, I say there are two endpoints. One is to increment the time. So user provides a string, time as a string, and also gives number of hours and number of minutes. And what we have to output is the date, the time that is incremented by this number of hours and this number of minutes. So this should output a string of the calculated time, or if there's an error in the calculation, this should return an error. So for the moment, I'll just return empty string here. So this should be returns. And another resource function that I have, which actually increments date. I'll provide a string date, int weeks, and int days here. This also should return a string or an error. At the moment here, I'll also return an empty string. So as I said earlier, there are time calculations here and there are time date calculations here. So what I'll do is I'll create a new Ballerina module here. To perform time operations, I'll create a module called time up here. And to perform date operations, I'll create a module called data. So if you see here, there's a new folder which is called modules that is generated inside this Ballerina project. And there's this data up module and there's this time up module. And for the moment, I'll also delete this test folder as well. And this time up has set of functions that I defined. And I'll define this increment time function here. String time in hours and in minutes. It has a string. One error in the translation. And for representing the time type here, I'll use a record in Ballerina. I'm sure you might have learned about records previously. So this record I'll name it as time. So record is a sort of structured way to represent your data in a Ballerina program. So for a time record, I have these fields called integer hours and integer minutes. So that's how I represent time in my program. And here I get a string time. I'll assume that my time is in the format like something like this. And what I'm going to do is, first I have to validate whether this time is correct. And if it is correct, I have to create a record of this type. For that, I'll write this function called pass time, which takes a string time again. And finally returns a record of type time, or returns an error if there's a error in the conversion. So first thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to split this string using this character here. For that, I'll use this regex module in Ballerina. I'll get this character and then I'll split it. This is how you split a string in Ballerina. Sorry, not pattern, it should be time here. Now I'm checking whether this paths array contain 2 elements. If it does not contain 2 elements, I know that it is not a valid time, because like hours should be there, minutes should be there. So if it doesn't contain 2 elements, I'm going to return an error here saying it's in the invalid format. And also, then what I'm going to do is, so these are 2 string values. So what I actually want is to convert these string values into integer values, because I store them as integers. So for that, I'll use this int from string to convert these strings to integer values. So one thing is, what I do here is, so I have this check keyword here. So if there's an error in translating this string value to an integer, let's just say it's something like a or something like that, it cannot be converted into int. So in this case, it would return an error from here. So there will be an error in translating this to record. So I'll just return the record that I time record here. So what you have to note, since I have the variable name and the field name similar, I just have to specify it like this. So here, I'll get a record. I'll again use check because this function can return an error. This time. Okay. Now I have got a record of time, and now I only have to increment the time. So there's this hours field inside this record. So to that hours field, I'll add the number of hours that I have to add. And for the minutes, I'll add the number of minutes that I have to add. Now, what I have to do here is, let's just say the value we get by incrementing the minutes is greater than 1. So we have to adjust to that overflow. So in order to do that, what I do is, I'll divide this by 60 and get the remainder and add it to hours. And also, like if the number of minutes is greater than 60, I'll use the modulus operator to get the actual value of the minutes that I want. And again, the number of hours can also be greater than 24. So for that, I'll again use the modulus operator. And finally, I'll return the string value. So this is something like this is like string templates in Ballerina. String templates is similar to format strings in Python. So to format a string in a particular order, I can do something like this. I can use this backticks, and then I can access this hours field and also access this minutes field. Now I finally have my time calculated after incrementing the value by the number of hours and number of minutes given. Now in the service here, I can directly import the function that I have defined in this time module. So how I can do that is, I usually just write the name of the module and it would automatically get imported when I click that. And now it will show the functions that are available inside it. Now I'll use this increment time function. I hope you understood what this does. And yeah, that's how it goes. And for this date module, I have a set of functions that I have already implemented here. I'll just copy paste the stuff. So in the date module also, I have this increment date function. I'll use that here to increment the date by number of weeks and number of days. So one thing that I want you to notice is, like, when I do this time dot colon, it shows me the available function, sorry, time up dot colon shows me the available functions in that module. It only shows me the increment time function as the available function there. But here I have defined two functions. So why it only shows one function is because I have specified public keyword here. Only the public functions that you have defined in your module are visible to outside from that module. So that's something that you can notice. And so you can also define multiple utility functions in your code and only define the functions that should be visible to the outside there. And here also in the data function module, I have a number of functions there. Only one function is public, and it is the only one that is visible to the outside. And also there's this constant array I have defined. I have not specified it to be public, and it is also not exposed to the outside. That is how you like to access modulation there. So this is my implementing time operation, implementing date operation. Now I'll just run it and show you. And there's this try it, which you can use. I'll give the time as 3:56. I'll increment by 1 hour and 15 minutes. Yep, it shows the value that comes after incrementing that. So that's the concept of modules in Ballerina. So modules is something where you can use to group this functionalities in your code. It is for the organization of your code. I'm sure in your projects, you also might need to create some sort of modules and some sort of organization of the code. So that's how you basically do that. Now, if I quickly go back into the slides, there's also a slide about testing Ballerina code. So in order to do testing, we have a library called Ballerina test, which has set of assertions, data providers, and which can do mocking. So how we can do is just invoke this bal test command. You have to write test, obviously. And previously, you might have remembered that I deleted certain test directories inside those modules. So what I can do is create a test directory there. So usually tests are stored in this test directory. And then I can create a time test. Add this to the time operation. And I can do time test dot well. And here I can define test functions. Test increment time. And there's this test module in Ballerina, which I can use for this. And test module contains these assertion functions. So assertion functions is something that we use to test whether the value that we get from a certain function is the expected value that we expect from that function. So here I can use this increment time. I'll give the same example that I gave to the outside that I executed the code with. And I expect the output of this to be 511. So that's how I do use assert equals. Now, in order to mark this as a test function, I use this test /config. So in that, when I mark it as a test function, then I can invoke the test function from here. Right, so my test is working. Now, if I just change my expected value to something different, right, it shows an assertion error because I expect it to be 510 and I got the value 511 there. So that's how you that's a very simple example on how you can write test in Ballerina. Now I'll jump back to my slides. Okay. Now about reusing of Ballerina code. So previously we talked about modules where you group set of functionalities together. Now there might be a case where you want to write a code and you want to share this code across multiple Ballerina projects. So in that case, you can create this shareable package. So shareable package is a use case of reusing of code in multiple Ballerina projects. So you might have heard of pip in Python. So pip is the package manager for Python. So similarly for Ballerina language, there's this Ballerina Central where users actually push their libraries to, and you can search in Ballerina Central for available libraries. And if you want a certain library, you can search there if the library is available. And also you can develop Ballerina shareable packages for libraries and push to this central and access those libraries as well. So I'll demonstrate how you can actually push a package to central and use that package that you pushed to central. So I'll just jump back into code. Here to create a library that I can share, I'll use this new command again with the template. This time the template is going to be lib, which stands for library, and I'll name it as data library 3. I guess because I already pushed a few libraries to Ballerina Central. And then I'll open this in VS Code. So again, I'll delete the test for the moment. It's my date library, and it has this package.md and module.md. And I'll actually copy the code from my date library that I had earlier. So this also is the same thing as the previous one. This has this public function which increments the date. Now I'll show you how you can actually push this library to the Ballerina Central, and so others can use that. So what you have to do is you have to go to Ballerina Central. And then you have to sign in or sign up. In my case, I just have to sign in. And then I have to create an organization here. I already have an organization there. I'll just create a new one. See if this name is available. So after you create an organization, then you have to generate the token here in Ballerina Central. And there's this settings.toml file that you have to download. So after downloading that settings.toml file, what you have to do is to move it to the Ballerina home. So usually Ballerina home is in user home directory. In the user home directory, there's a folder called .ballerina. You have to go into that. I'll open that. I have a settings.toml file there. I'll delete that. And I downloaded this settings.toml file. And I'll paste it there. So after pasting that, what I have to do is I have to go back to my code. So one thing that you have to modify is this node name. So you might remember that I created a new organization here called IEEE demo test. I had to update this auth name to this one if I want to push it to Ballerina Central. And then I have to only import two commands, first back and then back push. So back push is going to push it to the Ballerina Central. Now if I go back into Ballerina Central, my library is available there. So other users can now use my library that I pushed to Ballerina Central. Now, if I go back to my second demonstration about modules, I'll open it in VS Code again. So here you might remember, here I imported this date.of module that I created in the code itself. Now instead of that, I can import the package that I pushed to Ballerina Central here. To do that, what I have to do is I have to specify this name. IEEE demo test /develib. Just copy paste so I won't make any mistake. And then just pull that unresolved module. And it's pulling the module there. And the module is pulled. And now I can use the increment date operation in that module itself. Demo datelib /increment date here. Now if I run this, not sure there. Run this and try it. It is 9:30. Increment by 1 day, 1 week. And it gives the out. So that's how you can basically share your code with others, like by pushing your code into Ballerina Central and pushing your library into Ballerina Central. So that's how you can reuse your code. So that's about the reusing part of the Ballerina. And now let's move on to the language concepts. Over to you, Gimantha.
Okay, thank you, Poorna. Okay, let me share my screen again. Okay. Hope you can see my screen. Now,
Yeah.
there are a lot of concepts in Ballerina actually. So I think we only have 1 hour left, and we cannot actually demonstrate every concept in this session. So I will quickly go through our type system, and I will showcase some important types that might be very useful for you to be successful in your hackathon. So I will briefly go through the data types and the subtypes and what we call these shapes. And also we have these types JSON and XML as built-in types in Ballerina. So usually, JSON is a type of format that you use to exchange data. And XML is also kind of a data format that we usually transfer data to the networks. So XML was used previously in few years back, and now most of the developers use JSON as their format. And both of them are supported in Ballerina as built-in data types. So let me go to the code and showcase some of the data types. Actually, all of these data types have been covered in the Ballerina by examples page. If you go to this page, you see that all of the data types, simple basic types, strings and mapping, recordings, JSON types and XML, all of these are covered. And if you want to go through them and if you want to try it out, just copy paste the code into your project and run it. And you can do some modification and try it out and do some experiments on it. And all of them are covered in these examples. So I'm just going through these basic types, and I'm going to show you some important concept in Ballerina called query expressions, where you can actually reduce code into some level and do some do whatever you want to do in less number of lines. Okay, so let me go back to my VS Code. Okay, so numbers, basic types. So maybe you are familiar with Java or JavaScript or Python or any language. So all of these languages support these basic types: integers and floats and decimal. So decimal is kind of a large number. That is actually bit 128 number, which is a very large number. Might be similar to Java big integer. No, not actually big integer, is a double, right? And we have byte data type, and all of these are supported in Ballerina. You can actually use them. One small case is integer also supports hexadecimal values, but not octets, right? And also you can actually assign a byte data type into an int, because the byte is actually a subtype. You can say it's a subtype of integers. It contains value from 0 to 255, and you can also assign that to an integer. So I just simply demonstrated how you can assign these numbers. You can also perform some operation on these, and if you are going to, so you cannot actually perform summation or subtraction on a different data types. For example, if you have a float and if you have an int, you cannot add those two together. First, you have to cast it, or you have to convert it into that one data type somehow. So these are simple data types. So I'm not going. So I think we will not have much time to do the hands-on session. So I will quickly go through these. And apart from these numbers, we have a special type called nil. So let me uncomment this code, and I will copy this to the main bell and run it. Okay, so nil type is actually, have you guys heard the null is a very familiar type, null in Java or JavaScript. It's common in many languages. So similar data type in Ballerina is nil, right? It simply represent null. In JSON world, we simply represent null with this nil value. And you see here, we earlier in the numbers example, we had this variable int n. Now here in null, in this example, we have int or question mark. This actually means this v can be either int or either it can be a nil. So this is a union representation. So Ballerina supports union type. Union types means that variable can hold more than one data type. So in here, we can actually hold an int, or it can also hold a nil value. So initially it is assigned nil, but later you can also assign an int value for this variable v. Then the int will be replaced, or the nil will be replaced in that case. And also here we have this expression, I think you might have seen this, the ternary operator. For example, if I want to check, I will delete this. And if I want to see if v is nil, then I have another variable. For example, let's say int s. Here I would be assigning s equals 0. else I would assign S equal B, right? Now this code can be replaced with this ternary expression. I think you might have seen this. So probably here we have N and I have used S. Probably if I'm going to replace the whole thing with the exact if else condition, then I would use N here, not S. So also there's a very specific operator, Elvis operator, that is actually, we don't have a else part. We simply assign this value if the value of the V is nil. That means if I use this operator, I evaluate this V and see if value is int. If the value is int, I simply assign that value to M. Otherwise, that means if the value is nil, I will be assigning 0 to M. So this is a shorthand form of the same thing, like this. For example, if I change this to int, I will be assigning V here, and I would be assigning 0. So this is the same thing, which is much simpler. Right? This is the nil value in Ballerina. So there might be cases where you want to use nil to assign a value which is not actually assigned with whatever your preferred value, but to keep it initialized. You may want to use nil value for that. And also you might use the nil value to represent certain variables where you want to represent the value null in JSON values. So I will showcase that also. And also we have the string data type, which supports UTF-16 date encoded strings, and you can put anything there, but they have to have the surrogate pairs. That means in the valid UTF-16 range, you have to have those strings. So invalid ones will not be a proper string in Ballerina. And now I will go into the important part of these data types, which is JSON. So let me first comment out all these things. And also this one. Now this is the way that you would define a custom data type in Ballerina. For example, I define the keyword type, and then you give whatever the name you want, and then I would define a record type or the type already in Ballerina. So here, if I want to put int here, I have defined a foo type, which also label for int. I can use foo instead of int. Or if I want to represent a data type, which also support int and string, then I would use a union of int and string, and I give it name foo. Now, if we come to JSON, JSON is something like this. JSON has the nil type, which is the JSON null. And also it has Boolean, int, float, decimal, string, and also an array of the types that we defined earlier, and also a map of types we defined earlier. That means all of these. So this is actually defined as a JSON. So if you define a JSON like this, you can use it, but you don't need to define a type like this because Ballerina already has a data type called JSON. For example, let me uncomment this now. Okay. Now here, JSON n is equal to null. That means I also can assign that this value also, because both are the same thing in the JSON context, right? You can also assign numbers, you can assign strings, arrays, and also a mapping. everything can be assigned to this JSON variable, and you can perform any operation on that. Now here, I'm not going to run this code. This is also available in the Ballerina by Examples webpage. You can go there and run it by yourself. And but I'm going to show you some special things here. Now I have defined a record here. Now I said that we first define the keyword type, then we give the name, then we define the type we want. So this is how we define a record. Record is something that holds data. So it contains an ID and a name, which is ID is an int and the name is a string. And by this pipes, what we are saying is this record can only hold these two fields. It cannot hold any other fields. Because if I put like this means that this record will contain ID and name, but it can also contain other arbitrary field as well. So I am restricting by using these pipes to not have any other fields. For example, if I define a student like this, I can also say student dot, or I can put any variable here and assign some value. So I am disallowing that. And here you see that what I am doing here is I am cloning this J. J is actually, where is J? I can't find it. Okay, so here I have defined a string and I am using that string to convert that to a JSON. So this is what we call a lang-lib function. So we have a set of functions which are inbuilt. You can use it to convert string to JSONs and JSONs to string and other objects as well to strings and stuff like that. So I'm using this lang-lib function and convert that to a JSON. Now I'm using this JSON to directly cast it to a student data type. Now, sometimes you may have noticed that when you are invoking a service, HTTP service, you are sending some JSON value, XML value, and it will be directly binded to a Ballerina data type, a record. So internally, what we are doing is binding that string value into the Ballerina record using these clone with types and from JSON strings. So now we have a student type. Now, even in your hackathon, if you are dealing with JSON data types, what you need to do is you have to convert that JSON into whatever your user defined data type to record or something and process it. So it's much convenient to process non-record types rather than dealing with JSON or XML. Okay, so yeah. Now here I have defined a table. We have a table data type as well. So here we have, instead of this record, I can actually put student also. Okay, time, we have 1 hour left, and I think we have to keep time for the Q&A session as well as for the hands-on session. I will quickly go through the next one. So what we are doing here is we are defining a table. And this table have a constraint type called student. What is a constraint type? That means this table can only hold students. But we have a concept called equivalence, the structurally equivalency, where actually if there is another record which is actually subtype of this student, that means if it has a ID and a name, and also the type of ID is byte, that is going to be a subtype of student, right? It's kind of a subtyping concept, and that can also be put into this table. So we also have the mapping maps where the key is actually a string, which is very similar to what we have in Java, but the Java supports multiple types of keys for their key. Here, the map only can contain a string. But if you're going to use table, that limitation is not there. You can use anything as the key. All you have to do is define the key here and put the key. So here I am going to use the ID as the key, but this ID has to be a read-only field. So these concepts, I think we will not have time to cover here. But if you go to the Ballerina by examples, you can learn this much easier because we have a lot of examples there. Okay, so I'm wondering whether I should go through the XML part, because for your hackathon, what will be more useful is the JSON part. And first I will go through the query expression part. And if I have more time, I will go through the XML part. Now, okay, let me run this code and show you what's going to happen with these query expressions. Now I have an array of int here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and here I have used an query expression. What I have done here is I am looping through the nums, which is this array, and I am selecting each of this and multiplying each value by 10. And what will I get is an again int array. So if I'm going to do this with a for each, I would have to write the variable name, and I have to use nums here. And then I would have to create another int here, let's say temp, and I would be multiplying this with 10, and then I would be pushing, if I use the same variable here, I would be pushing that to this array. So instead of this, see here, I had to use 4 lines here. Instead of that, I would use single line. Okay, let me undo this. This is a mess now. Okay. Now, instead of this part, what I would do is I would simply use this query expressions to generate this array. And it is actually a one-liner, even though it is in 2 lines because I have added some comments here. Now this is one-liner. So you can actually generate an array using query expressions in 1 line. Also, you can also add some where clause here, where I is divisible by 2. Okay, now that example is down there. Let me show you that. Now here, what I have done is I am looping through this nums array, and I am filtering out all the elements which are divisible by 2. And I am creating an array with that those values. Okay, let me run this. Okay, what's that? Okay, I have some comments here. Let me comment out this. Okay. Now this is the one that this is the one we actually multiplied by 10. This is where we actually filter out the even numbers, and this is where we actually sort the whole array in the descending order. So we have this order by clause and everything. So if you go to the okay, where is that? If you go to the query section, query expression section, you have all the examples there. You can even perform aggregations, and you can join two clauses, join two query expressions and generate more values. And also you can use the query expressions to create or convert one data type to another data type. For example, here I am creating a table, here I am creating a map. So if I go to that example, you will see that okay, so now here what we are doing is we are actually processing a table using query expressions, but we are again generating another table. So you can actually use query expressions to convert a table to a map or an array also. So that example is not there. Let me see if we can find it here. Create streams. Okay, it's not there. Maybe I can show you that. Or maybe I will keep it to do that after that hands-on session. Otherwise, we will not have much time for that hands-on session. So what I wanted to highlight is, if you are going to perform such iterations and conversion between different data types, use much as possible these. So try to use a query expressions as much as possible. So that will make your code concise and small and easy to debug on very easy to read. So if you have any questions regarding query expressions or anything about this language concept, please ask in the Stack Overflow, or if you prefer a kind of a discussion type of mode, then join our Discord channel and we will be able to help you and resolve your issues. So I think now we can dive into the hands-on session, and let me hand over this to Sasindu. And one small thing that I wanted to highlight is, so I think Poorna, we might need to update the demo as well. So we are actually incrementing that, incrementing the time using that your module. There we were using the HTTP method as get. So it's an update. So we have to make it a post. So I think we should update the cheat code there.
Yeah.
Chamudi, I think Sasindu has a problem unmuting himself.
Yes, just give me a moment. I'll check out.
Okay, now it's clear. So I will share my screen. Okay. I think now you guys can see my screen, right? Okay.
Yeah,
so
we can see.
yeah. Okay. So thank you, Gimantha. So hi all, I'm Sasindu Alahakoon, Senior Software Engineer at WSO2. And now in this session, I will do the hands-on session with Ballerina services. So this hands-on session will include how to develop a Ballerina REST service, a recap on the last session we did, and how to integrate MySQL databases to Ballerina REST service, and also how to make secure APIs, and also how to develop a Ballerina WebSocket service to do real-time communication. So now let's deep into our hands-on session. So first, I will do a quick recap about REST services with Ballerina. To demonstrate this hands-on session, I created a simple order management system. I created a simple order management system written in front-end server as React.js and backend in Ballerina. So, I saw there's a one question to show how to connect Ballerina service with a front-end application. So in this code, it is there. So I will describe you while I doing the session. Give me a minute. Okay. So yeah. So this is the sample application I'm going to demonstrate today. So as I said, this UI is created from the React.js. So I will show you what are the use case in this web application first. So in this web applications, users can add orders and view each orders like this and filter orders by the cargo ID. So this is the application we are going to demonstrate today, developing one by one with Ballerina REST service capabilities. Okay, so this is my Ballerina application, the backend server of the system. So as Poorna said, we have config.toml, ballerina.toml, dependencies.toml, and some other Ballerina files in here. So I saw one question, a student asked how to keep types. I have several lot of types. I need to store that in one file. How to do that? So there are maybe several things, Ali. So you can do several ways. One way to do is you can define a types.bal in here and define types like this. Or otherwise you can define a file called server types, client types, server types.bal, client types.bal like that, and store each type separately like that. There are no hard and fast rule. So what I follow in here is I create a types.bal file and I define Ballerina record types in here. So I will describe these types first. So this type, the order record type, will represent an order in our order management system. And this cargo record will represent a cargo ship in our order management system. So these are the fields in order. It is ID, custom ID, date, status, like that. In cargo, also, we have several fields, ID, let, long, start from, like that. And also I define some enums, Ballerina enums, for define the status of the order and the cargo. And finally, I define a type called location to track the location of a cargo ship. So these are the types I defined for my system. So these are the representation of order and cargo in Ballerina for this application. Okay, so next I have the db.bal file in here. So in this file, my target is to store the database related things. As example, I will the CRUD operation of the database. This insert order function will responsible for inserting data to the our database. Like that, this select order, select all order, these functions provide the database related operation. So those are in this file. Okay. So in this server.bal will represent our Ballerina REST service defined as a HTTP REST service. And this WebSocket service.bal file will represent a WebSocket server. It will implement in the future, future parts in my hands-on session. Currently, it is not implemented. So I will start from this server.bal. So this server.bal contains a HTTP REST service. So I think you got a good understanding about HTTP REST service in our last session. So I will give you a quick recap about that. So Ballerina HTTP module contains the facility to implement the REST service and so other REST capabilities in Ballerina. So this REST service has a base path of /sales and it is run on port 9090. So as the default host, it will run on localhost. Okay. So this REST service contains 4 different resource functions. The first resource function is orders. Its resource path is orders, and it is a get HTTP request, and it returns an order array or an error. This error happens when there's a network failure or some other failure. During the process, it will return an error, or otherwise in the successful scenario, it will return an order array. Okay, so that is the explanation about this resource function. Like that, this resource function is responsible for get a specific order by an ID. So this is the resource path /orders/ then this is the order ID that I need to query. So that ID is moduled as a path parameter in this resource function. in the resource path. And like this in here, this resource function is responsible for select orders based on the cargo ID, orders that related to a cargo ship, specific cargo ship. And also this is a post request. These three are GET request, right? In here you can specify the GET. So this is HTTP GET request, these three are, and this is HTTP post request, has the resource path of orders, and it get a order entry, order type record, name, order entry as the request body. So in this post request, we get a request body of type order. Okay. So this post HTTP resource function is responsible for adding a new element to our database. So it will add a new element to the database and it will return HTTP status code 200. I will explain you those of details when I'm developing the code. So this is the basic structure of my HTTP REST service. Okay. So for now, so in the current state, I use a Ballerina table type to represent the database. This is kind of an in-memory table, a Ballerina inbuilt table data type. So this is my database for now. And now I'm going to integrate MySQL database into that. Before that, one student asked us to show how to connect front-end React application with a Ballerina service, right? So I will show you the React code also. In here, what we do is we, how to connect means like we define a Ballerina service and we define several resource functions and we run that service using the Ballerina command. Then in the front-end application, in this example, I use Axios. You know, the React, there's a module called Axios to handle HTTP related HTTP requests and response. The React.js, that means Node.js has a method called Axios. I use the Axios API, Axios library. And in the Axios library, what I do is axios.get. Then I use the URL. So as example, if I need to access this resource function, what I need to do is I need to add the URL as, since this is run on the localhost HTTP localhost, then the port, as you know, then the base path of the service, that is /sales, and the base path of the resource function, that is /orders in here. Okay. So like that, I need to use Axios, then get, then the URL in here. And if you have any specific headers or something like that, you can add in the second parameter as well. You can learn about Axios, more about Axios in NPM documentation. And I will give you another example how to access this resource function using the React.js. What you have to do is axios.get, then provide the URL like this. This is the base path of the service, and this is the base path of the resource function. So it is orders / then the order ID. Okay. So as same. So this is a post request. If you need to connect your front-end React application to this resource function, what you have to do is, it is simple. You have to use axios.post, then URL. In here, the URL is, I will show you. Yeah, in here, the URL is same as the previous base path of the service and the resource path of the resource function. So resource path of the resource function like this, and put that in here. Then add the this is important. Then add the request body. This post request contain a request body, and then add the additional configuration if you have headers authorization like that. Okay, the part you add in here, it is a request body, right? It will automatically map to this. If you have post resource function, the request body automatically map into here in Ballerina. So like it will automatically handle. And also when you're returning some kind of then in here we return an order array. So in this service also return in order array. So Ballerina contains a flexible type of getting and returning values from a HTTP resource function. You don't need to specify this as JSON or XML like that. You have to provide the Ballerina record type. Then Ballerina will automatically map that when they send the data through the wire. Okay. So that is the brief explanation about how to connect React application with Ballerina. And a quick recap about our last session, how to develop a simple REST application in Ballerina. I think the questions, some of questions get resolved. If you have any other question, please ask at any time or put in the chat. Okay, I will move into the next part. So now I'm going to implement MySQL database into our system. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I develop the database related things in this db.bat. Okay, so for that, now I'm going to implement the MySQL database. For that, I provide the init data SQL file in this file. So when you are running after this session, you can clone this repo and you can run. So when you run it, just copy paste this. You have to create a database and copy paste this .sql content into a MySQL and create the database that you need to build this order management system. So as an example, in here, I already built that. I will show you the tables, cargo, locations, orders, like that. I already run this script. So as usual, this cargo table will represent the cargo ship in our system. This orders table represent an order. Location table will represent a cargo ship location. So after that, now let's remove this. Let's remove this in-memory table in our as the thing we used as our database, and let's connect MySQL. Okay, I will start the coding. In Ballerina, the MySQL integrating MySQL is handled by Ballerina MySQL library. Like, can just it is Ballerina x/MySQL module. So this will contain various operations of handling MySQL databases like CRUD operations, client creations, like that. There are so many operations are inside this module. So in order to connect with the database, first I need to create a MySQL client, right? In Java, you will create a JDBC client to connect with the database, right? Similarly, in here, what you need to do is create a MySQL client to connect with my MySQL database. So I will create a MySQL client named DB client. So I will delete this. I will delete for now. So this is a sample database client. Now we use check operation because in Ballerina what the check operation do is if there's an error, it will throw the error. So if we remove this check operation, it is similar to like this. So someone can ask why there's an error return type in this client creation. It is because when the client is creating, there can be errors, right? So so Ballerina will map that into our error type and provide the user to option to handle that errors. So for now, I will use check keyword and throw if there are any errors. Then in the DB, when I create in the MySQL client, I need to provide specific configurations options. Those are like host, port, database, user, password, like that. Okay, so as all of you know, we cannot directly pass password in here, right? It is not a good practice. So like Poorna said, what we need to do is we need to use configurable variables. So for those client creation parameters, I will use configurable parameters. So one of you may ask, yeah, password is sensitive. Why you use a configurable variable for host or port? It is because so if someone some other person run this code, their host or port can be different, right? From me. So those configurable variables should be contain sensitive information and the variables that can be differ from the environment to environment. So like Poorna did, I define the config.toml and define these configurable variables for me. So that's how we created the MySQL client. So now I will do my CRUD operations using this MySQL client. First, I will do the insert order operation. So this is how we do the insert order operation. I will describe one by one. So for the insert order operation, we need order entry. This is coming from the request body. So then first I will use this notation, destructuring notation, to destructure this order type variable called entry. As you know, if you are familiar with JavaScript, you know this notation, right? This entry contains field called ID, custom ID, date, status, like that. So we destructured them using the Ballerina syntax and get each value mapped to the each variable. So if this ID variable contains the ID of this entry, like that, then we will define the query for the to do the insert operation in Ballerina. For that, we need to use Ballerina SQL module. Now, some of you may ask why we need two modules, MySQL and SQL. This is because Ballerina SQL module contains set of operation that is common and that can be used across all the SQL libraries. As example, MySQL, PostgreSQL, MS SQL, there can be common things, right? So those are implemented in our SQL library, and the MySQL specific things are implemented in our Ballerina MySQL library. So that is why I imported the Ballerina SQL module. So now let's get the attention into our query. So you will notice that this is not a string type, right? This is SQL parameterized query type. Why I need that? That is because to prevent SQL injection, we need to use this SQL parameterized query type. If we define SQL parameterized query type query with backticks like this, Ballerina will ensure that there is no SQL injection attack can be happen. So developers no need to worry about that. He just need to put the query, define the query inside the backticks and define it as the SQL parameterized query type. Then Ballerina will look after the SQL injection attacks and those things it will cover. So you can pass variables into the query by this notation, like Poorna did in his session. Now we need to execute our query. Okay. In here, for that we have for the DB client we have a remote function called execute. If I go to the execute, it will execute the SQL query. So it will return either SQL, it will return a union type, SQL execution result, union SQL error. So this SQL error will represent if there's this SQL error will return if there's any error happen while executing the SQL query. If the SQL query executes successfully, then it will return this SQL execution result type. Okay. So I need to update this signature to, because this function now return SQL execution result or SQL error. Okay. I think you got some kind of understanding about how to define a query, how to execute a query in Ballerina using the MySQL module. So now I will quickly add the implementation for other functions as well. So now in here for the select order thing, I need the ID. The select order function is responsible for select a specific order based on the ID, right? So I need the ID. This will came as the path parameter. So then I define the query using this SQL parameters query type. and then I will use the query row API. So let's see the definition of this query row. So this query row means execute the query which is expected to return as most one row of the result. So that means if you expected to have one result in the execution, so you can use this query row API. Okay, since I expect one row in here, I will use this query row API in the MySQL client. Now let's go to our next function. In here also, I will define the query in this type, SQL parameters query type. And so since this function is select all orders, I will use this query select star from orders. And now I don't need one result, right? I can it may have one or many result. For that scenario, I will use this query API. If you go to the definition, you can see execute the query which may return multiple result like this. Okay. So, and then, so this multiple results are written as a stream in Ballerina. You may or may not heard about streams. There's a type called streams in Ballerina, which give you the streaming capabilities through set of data. So it will return as stream. So what I do is, going to do is I use a query expression, language integrated query expression to convert my stream into an order array. You can use this stream as it is for your operations as well. But for this demo, I will convert this stream to an order array. So this stream may contain error if this query give error, something called network failure or invalid query scenario like that. That may be an error scenario, right? In that scenario, it will return an error. So then when I querying through this stream, it will also return an error. So this function will return an error. Order array union error. Okay. This error scenario will happen if there's an issue happen in this query. And similarly, I can define this database function like this. So this is how we can implement, how we can integrate Ballerina MySQL module in order to connect with MySQL databases with Ballerina HTTP service. So now let's go to our service.bal file and do some updates according to our changes in the MySQL. So these functions are okay because they have the same function signature. But in this function, you can see that there's an error. That is because this insert order function return SQL execution result or SQL error, right? So we need to update this function like this. So in here also you need to import the Ballerina SQL module like this. So now you can see that in here we try to insert an order. It will give a union type error, giving error if there's an error scenario while inserting the order. If it is success, it will give SQL execution result. So now what I'm going to do is I will handle the error scenario and the successful scenario. So if the result is SQL execution result, that means it is success, right? So then I will return HTTP OK. That means HTTP status code 200. If there's an error scenario, then I will return HTTP status code 500. That means internal server error. Okay. Important note that in Ballerina, all the status code are bind in the language itself. So if you want to return a HTTP status code 400, you can return it like this. Like the whole are binded into language itself. So that is why Ballerina is the best language to do the integrated related stuff. So that is how we implement our service with our integrated MySQL database. So now I need to run my service, run my the bell run command, or else you can use this run command in here, run action in here. So you may wonder why I add this annotation to the service, right? This is because to handle CORS. I think a lot of you may know about the CORS, right? When you create a React or a front-end application in localhost, and when you create a backend server in the same localhost, like in the you create the front-end application in the localhost, then you create the backend server in the localhost also. When you call in front-end to backend, there's a error called CORS, right? CORS error, CORS policy, cross origin. So to handle that, to remove that error, we use this CORS configuration in our HTTP service configure. So this is why we handle. So when you're hosting your application, you can remove these CORS attributes because there is no more cross origin errors. Okay. So now when I'm trying to run in the code, I will go to error. Database drive is not defined. That is because when I work with the MySQL database, I need to add the MySQL database related config into dependency into the Ballerina.toml. So in your projects, when you add some MySQL or a MS SQL or some kind of PostgreSQL or some kind of SQL related thing, you need to add your dependency into the Ballerina.toml. Now let's run our program. So you can see that there's no data in here now, right? It is because about my order table is empty. So let's add a one. Yeah, let's add a one item in this add button, and you can see that there are the order is added in here. So if I query the database, it is now showing in here. So that's how we integrate MySQL into our system. I hope you get a good understanding about that. So okay. So now, when you seek in this front-end application, you may see some kind of a weird thing, right? In here, this location is some kind of a dots, right? Then there's no location specified. So that is because according to this order management system use case, this location should be the real-time location of the cargo ship that transport this order. Okay, that is the use case. So it is not implemented yet. So now I am going to implement that. That is where the WebSocket in Ballerina come into the picture. So we finish this one, and now we finish this one, and now we are in here. So now we are going to implement the WebSockets with Ballerina. So yes. So yeah, some of you may or may not know about WebSockets. So WebSocket is actually WebSocket are a way for a web application to create a two-way communication channel between browser and a server. It's a kind of a two-way channel between a front-end application and back-end application. So it is unlike the regular HTTP requests where the browser asks for a data and the server responds. WebSockets allow both the browser and the server to send messages to each other at any time without needing ask first. In the HTTP services, what happens is front-end application send a request and the service return a response, right? But in WebSocket, what we do is they created a tunnel with a handshake process, and through this tunnel, they can communicate data in bidirectionally, one A to B and B to A. like in real time. Okay, so A can send to the B, A can send data to B in real time, and B can send data to A in real time, like that. Think of it is like a phone call. Once the connection is made, either side can talk whenever they want. So that is the real magic in the WebSocket. So like do real time things. So as example in WhatsApp, you may know when you open the chat, the new messages are coming, right? So you can chat in real time. You don't need to reload the page to get the new chat. So that is implemented using the WebSocket technology. So okay, now that is the brief explanation about WebSocket. Now let's move into the Ballerina implementation of WebSocket. So Ballerina WebSocket functionality is defined in this Ballerina WebSocket library. This Ballerina/WebSocket library will provide various operations related to the WebSocket. In this demonstration, I will show some few of them. After this demonstration, you can search this and learn more about Ballerina, learn more about WebSockets and how to implement that in Ballerina. So for this use case, I will define a WebSocket service in the service path of logistics and in the port of 1991, like this. Okay, so this WebSocket is responsible for listening to the 1991 and doing the real-time communication. So after we develop that front-end application, the front-end application will create a bidirectional tunnel with doing a handshake with this our Ballerina WebSocket, and through that tunnel they can communicate bidirectionally in real time. Okay, so now I will define a resource function inside this WebSocket. Inside the WebSocket service, I have a resource function. In the resource path is cargos/cargo ID. So a quick recap, we are going to implement this WebSocket service to get the location of a cargo ship, right? This order is on a cargo ship and we need the location of the order. That means we need the location of the cargo ship, right? So this cargos/cargo ID means this WebSocket will communicate the location of this of the ship that contains ID as this cargo ID. Okay, so in here I will return a new location service. So what is this location service? This location service is a type of a WebSocket service in Ballerina. I will explain you. It is something like this. It is something like this. I need to implement the function in here to explain things. I will implement. So this resource, this WebSocket contain a resource function and it return a location service. This location service will contain the shape of the WebSocket service class. Okay. So what happened is what happened now in here is, so when front-end application when front-end application initiate a WebSocket connection with this URL, that means localhost 9 port 1991, then logistics, the server base part of the WebSocket service, and then cargos/cargo ID. So when the front-end application initiate a connection, WebSocket connection handshake with this WebSocket service, it will create a bidirectional tunnel. So this is the URL. This is the API endpoint that you need to use to access this WebSocket service in Ballerina. So if you're using a React application, this is the endpoint you need to use. So I think it is clear. In further details, when I'm during the coding, I will show you how to connect in the React.js also. For now, I will code the Ballerina part. So now inside this WebSocket service, I will define a attribute called cargo ID. And when initializing this, I will use this cargo ID. Okay. So now I will go to the Ballerina WebSocket. In this WebSocket service, give you certain capabilities. On open, on text message, on binary message, on message. There are a lot of functions. So, like as example, here you can define something like this. Like you can define those functions. I will comment out this logic for now. So these functions are triggered when there are some certain conditions. So as example, onOpen function will initiate. The onOpen function will dispatch when the WebSocket connection between the front end and Ballerina service got success. And this onClose function will trigger when the WebSocket connection get closed, and this onError function will trigger when there's an error between the connection. When they are trying to build the connection and there's error, then this function will trigger. So that is how Ballerina simplify the coding. Like developers don't need to think anything. He just need to add the logic in the onOpen. If they what they need to do while the connection got success, and same in the onClose and onError, they need to do the logic for each situation. And there are also several message on message. That means this function will trigger when there's a message, binary message or a text message. On binary message function will dispatch when there's a binary message in the tunnel. Like that, there are several capabilities. You can read all these capabilities. If you read this, you can get a good understanding about how the Ballerina representation and how the WebSocket use. So for this demonstration, I will show you only these three methods: onOpen, onClose, and onError. So now, for this, I need to import the Ballerina log module like this. This is okay. So now we created the Ballerina WebSocket service. We implement the location service. So inside this location service, what I do is I allocate a new strand and allocate that strand to find the location of the cargo with that specific ID like this. So I will define the helper functions for that. Need to import this type like that. So what happened in this code is when the connection got established, it will query the location of the cargo ship that contains this specific ID from the database. So this is the custom logic for that. Since this is a demo, I use a while true and do some demo logic. So in your real world application, so you can add the real world usage, real world logic, the business logic in here, or else you can add the on message function and add the your business logic in there. So for this demo, I will calculate the location whenever the WebSocket connection got initialized. And what happened in here is it will query the database and return the location. So for that, I need to add another function for my db.bal to query the location from the database in the MySQL database. For that, I will add the logic in here. Since this is a demo, I will give you a random location. In the real world application, you need to add a logic to get the specific location of your cargo. I hope that is clear. So now, this is the simple, this is the implementation in Ballerina. You also agree this is a very simple. If you develop a WebSocket in any other framework, it will go through more lines than that and it will complicated. But in Ballerina, all the complexities bind into the language. So developers are very easy to code. Like Ballerina will handle all the things, all the complexity things will handle by the language, make it easy to the developer. So now let's go to our JavaScript code to see how we handle this WebSocket, how the developers can create this WebSocket connection. Yeah, in here. So this is how we, since this is a demo, I create 3 connections. For your real world application, you need to connect as you need according to a business logic. So this is how we initiate our WebSocket connection. So when we use the WebSocket library and we create a handshake, establish a connection with this endpoint. So in this endpoint, it will call the Ballerina WebSocket service, and both of them establish a connection. And then what this front-end application do is, when there is a message, it will update the location. And for this demo purpose, I add some sleep logic as well. So, but the important thing in here is, when there is a message, on message, it will define the location. It will update the location. In here, so when the database return the location, the WebSocket caller will write the location into the tunnel. Okay, so in here, the location will get from the database, and in here, Ballerina WebSocket caller write the location data into the tunnel, the bidirectional tunnel. Then, then this on message will be triggered. So then this location will be set. So that is how we implement the WebSocket with Ballerina and React.js. So that is how the connection got made between them. Okay, if you this caller had several functions: write text message, write binary message, write message, ping pong, like that. There are so many lot of capabilities in Ballerina. For this demo, I only use the write message functionality. So now let's run this. Yeah, so I run the Ballerina project. So now you can see that the locations are updated in real time, right? So since this is a demo, there's no pattern in the location, but in the real world, you can add the specific location for this. So that's how we implement the WebSocket with Ballerina. As the next thing, I will show you how to implement a secure REST service with JWT, as also a student asked that question. So now I will show you how to do that. So in here, so yeah. So this is my REST service, right? So I need to secure this service. So in real world application, it's essential to secure system APIs to protect them from potential attacks, right? There are so many attacks. So this is where the authentication and authorization come into the action. So authentication means login and grant the access token. Authorization means according to the scopes and the authentication parameters, you give the role-based access. Like some users can access only this, some users can access only this, and guest can access only this, like that. That is called authorization. So one common method is for handling the authorization and authentication is JWT, JSON Web Token, right? So in the authentication, client in the authentication, while the login, the front-end application send a request to login, then backend application will evaluate the username and password, so other credential, and it will give a token to the front-end application, right? So front-end application need to store that token, JWT token or some other token. Front-end application need to store that token in a local storage. in the browser or some other local storage. Then after that, whenever the front-end application calls a request from the backend service, it need to use that token. So using that token, the authorization and the authentication part will handle. Okay. So fortunately, Ballerina supports JWT authentication in a very simple manner. So I think so it is very simple. You can just use an annotation to achieve that. Just using the annotation will enough to achieve that. So this is how this course I told you previously, and this is the way we handle the authentication in Ballerina. So in this HTTP service config, there's a parameter called auth. In auth, we can provide an array of authentication mechanism. Like we not just only one, we can send a set of authentication methods. So one of that is JWT validator config. That means JWT config. So in here, it will verify the issuer of the JWT token, audience of the JWT token, and scopes. These scopes will give the authorization, and this issuer and audience, those things will validate the JWT token. These are not only the parameters. You can add JWT ID, you can add custom scope parameters like that. There are so many fields in this JWT validator config. So for this demo, I use only this field. So this is how we handle the JWT validation. So if you want to secure your secure your resource function, what you need to do is send the JWT token with the React.js whenever you access a resource, and then using this annotation, this auth field, you can handle the JWT authorization. So someone may ask, so is this validation only for the service? Can't we do it for resources? Yes, we can do. We can do specific authorization for each resources as well. For that, you need to use the HTTP resource config annotation. In here also you have auth field defined. In this auth field, you can define any kind of JWT validation or auth2 validation. Those kind of scenarios you can provide in here. So that authorization scopes, that authorization rules will only map for this resource function. If you provide in here, it will apply to the all resource function inside this service. So that is how the JWT validation will work in Ballerina. Okay. So Ballerina also support OAuth2 capabilities. There are like JWT and OAuth2 client your username, password based credentials, client credential, client secret, client ID, client secret credential. There are so many capabilities in Ballerina for OAuth2. You can search them. You can find them in the Ballerina OAuth2 repo. So this is a kind of a example in the Ballerina by example site regarding the Ballerina OAuth2 service. You can find in here, and also we have the central this Ballerina central contains the public functions and the API details with examples. So you can also refer them to find the OAuth2 capabilities in Ballerina. Okay, so that is the end of the demo. So now I will give some brief explanation about some other features in Ballerina as in a quick manner. So Ballerina has a module called persist, Ballerina persist. It's the ORM of our language. Some of you may not know about ORM. ORM means object relational mapping. That means this is applied with the databases. That means how we connect, how we map a database table or a database details with our language types. So in our demonstration code, what we do is we use SQL queries to insert data, create data, select data like that. For CRUD operation, we use query. Instead of using queries, we can use ORMs. That means instead of using queries, we can we can just use function called select orders. So with that function, the ORM will handle the queries and all the database relational mappings. So Ballerina persist module is the ORM for the Ballerina. So with this module, you can handle database related operation with less number of codes, and it is very useful when if you change the database. Like if you change the database, the code will there, you have to just change the sum of configuration. So that is the advantage. And also you don't need to write lengthy queries. All will be handled by the Ballerina persist module. You just need to provide the parameters that you need to do in the CRUD operation. That is the advantage of Ballerina persist module. So when you are developing the project, you can use that Ballerina persist module as well. So other than that, other than the things we discussed, REST API, WebSocket, JWT, and MySQL database, Ballerina supports so many network capabilities. Like you can use any of them in our sites. All have Ballerina by examples, simple examples to explain things. And also we have specifications in our sites that will define deeper things. So Ballerina support GraphQL, Kafka, RabbitMQ, gRPC, NATS, TCP, UDP, LDAP, FTP, SFTP, various protocols in a very simple manner. With 2 or 3 number of lines, you can do anything in these modules. Just check it on our resources, Ballerina by examples. You will get understand. In future, if you have to work with the gRPC or something like that for your React application or some kind of a microservice system, Ballerina is the simplest solution and the efficient solution for that. Okay. So now I will cover the resources and the support part. So that is the end of our hands-on session. So now I will briefly tell you how you can access us if you have a question or something like that. So if you have a question regarding our Ballerina related program, or if you have a question regarding the concept in Ballerina, anything you can ask on the Stack Overflow, just like this in this screenshot. You can ask in this Stack Overflow. Actually, as students, it is very beneficial to you by gathering this Stack Overflow points also. So ask anything related to the any question related to the Ballerina in Stack Overflow. We will instantly reply to you with code examples and the explanation. And also if you need some kind of a discussion, why is this like this, and you need to build a discussion with us why this is like this and why it is not like this. Like if you need to build a discussion, you can ask on Discord. Our Discord channel will appear, the link of the Discord channel will appear later in the slides. You can ask us on Discord. So these are our learning resources. So Ballerina by examples contains simple example for more understandability for all the capabilities in Ballerina, and Learn Guide contains some kind of a detailed explanation about some categories and scenarios. And also integration tutorials, you can learn about the integration, how to do the integration in Ballerina, like how to convert things, how to access, and how to connect services together. Those kind of integration things you can access in this resource, integration tutorial resource. And also we have a training series, YouTube training series. You can watch those also. So this is our GitHub link, Stack Overflow, Discord, and the X links in here. So I will remind you again, if you have a question, you can ask on Stack Overflow anytime, because of Ballerina is open source project, and because of the open source culture, we are always ready to answer you any kind of question as soon as we can. So it's time to for the question and answer session. Actually, there are so many questions in the chat. I think all of our replied.
Yeah, there are some questions which are not answered yet, and I'm going to give some answers for them. Okay, regarding this .tnv file, so usually what we do is we use config.toml, And also you can read some config variables like system level variables using OS module. We have OS module, and you can use that as well to read system level variables. So I'm going to put the link to that library, and you can use both the modes. So yeah, and let me check whether there are any other questions unanswered. Yeah, I guess we don't have any other issues in the chat. If you have any questions, we can discuss now. Anything related to hackathon? Any questions? I guess all are good. So one thing to note is that there are a lot of concepts in Ballerina, and actually we did not cover everything in this session. And for example, if you are going to manage different types of database, there we have transactions, and we did not cover that in this workshop. But you can go to the Ballerina by examples page and you can refer to them. And we have concurrency. How do we handle concurrency? So those are not covered here. And how are you going to handle different workers in one program? So we have not covered that. And you can also refer to the Ballerina by examples to learn about that and use that. And we also have this concept of isolation. So we did not take time to cover those as well. And there are a lot of concepts like that. So it will need another full workshop to cover those as well. But I think for the scope of this hackathon, what we covered will be actually enough. And if you are going to use any advanced concept that we did not cover, that will actually be beneficial for you to gain points for this hackathon. So yeah, and if you have any questions related to those concepts, you can raise them in Stack Overflow or the Discord. We will answer them as quickly as possible.
In the chat also, I can see there are some concerns regarding like the Rexios and like tokens and those things. So, like if you need further more details, ask on Stack Overflow. We'll answer you as soon as possible. Yeah. And I will recommend you to clone the repo of the React.js, the code I showed. It will benefit to you because when you're developing if you want to quickly develop a project with React.js and a backend service, so you can use that code because the Ballerina is very easy to handle less number of lines. So try to clone that repo and try to code in there, play something. And if there's any issue, ask in the Stack Overflow or in the Discord. Thank you.
Sasindu, will we have some time to demonstrate how a persist would work? Is it possible at the moment? Otherwise, we can actually do a simple code. Chamudi, do we have any place to share any code sample that we can submit as an answer for their questions?
Yeah, sure. We actually have time up to 9 p.m. If you can conclude it by then, sure, you can continue.
Okay, give me 1 minute. So this is regarding the persist question, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Is it possible at the moment? Otherwise, we can share the code later.
I can show example. So give me 1 minute. So Since these are open source projects, you can access these anytime. So I'm also accessing our sample code. So this is a sample that we use persist. So this also contain a front-end application. If you need to study, you can study in here. So what happened in here is so in the persist documentation. So if you read the documentation, you will understand the fully A to Z. So I will try to explain you as much as I can. So when you need to implement the persist into your REST function, REST service or your application, first you need to run this command persist init module / module. Then you need to add your database in here. If it's MySQL, you need to add MySQL in here. Okay, then it will initiate the persist project. Then inside this module, inside this persist directory, you have to specify your object relational mapping concept. That means you have to specify your tables as Ballerina records. So as an example, so I have in this application also, I have an order and a cargo. So I represent order in this record and cargo in this record. So persist in the next steps, persist will map each of this record into database table. So as example, persist will map this record with ID field as the primary key because it is read only, and custom ID field like that, similar to this. And also you can see that in the order record, it contains a cargo field, cargo dependency type in here, right? So then persist will match that as a foreign key. So you know about foreign key concept, right? So that's what happened in here. So after running the persist command, so this will create a table with ID, custom ID, data, date, status, quantity, item, and there's another column called cargo ID. It is a foreign key for this ID. Okay, similar to here, it will create a tables like this. So first you need to run this command. So initialize, then you need to add your module with representative records for tables, and then what you need to do is run this persist generate command. So then this will generate your client and those details like in here. So after you run the persist generate command, as the third step, after you run this, it will generate these details: persist client, persist dbconfig, persist types, script.sql. So you don't need to do anything. That command, after you running that command, Ballerina will handle everything. It will create this persist client. So in this persist dbconfig file, you need to provide your configurations like we discussed. So in this persist client, we have a persist client, and it contains several APIs that you can use for the CRUD operation in the database. I will show you an example. So after you run this command, now you are good to go. Now you can use this ORM for your project. So as an example, in my demonstration, what I did is I use a query, SQL query to I use a SQL query to insert element, right? Insert table, column, like that. I use SQL query. But now with persist, after those steps got executed, you can use this kind of a resource function execution to do that. So you just need to create a persist client. In here, I named it as order database. This is the persist client generated from the persist library after executing this command. So I initiate a client. Then what I do is initiate a command, then this arrow function represent a remote function call, then slash sorry, in here, so this a client remote this remote call to the my table name dot post with the body. This is like versus client slash then the table name post means insert. Like if you did a post to the orders table, it means insertion. The insertion data is in here. So as an example, in here, I will show in in here. What to do is persist client, then a remote call, then the your table name slash, then you provide the ID as a path parameter. So if you call the, if you use this way, this persist module, you don't need to add SQL queries. Persist will handle all this SQL query generation part, SQL injection attack, preventing SQL injection attacks, those things, and just simply return you the result of order union persist error. Persist error means if there's a issue happen while executing that, it will return an error. Otherwise, in the success scenario, it will return a node. Like that, you can use this in any way. In if you need all rows in the database, you need to add this kind of order database orders. Like so, assume that the table name is T, then and the persist client is order database. Order database slash T means getting all the orders. Order database slash T slash ID means getting the order with that specific ID. And also if it is slash T dot post means you are going to insert an element. Like that, you can define you can easily access databases with the table names and your column names without doing any SQL queries. So you will be more familiar with this after you can try this example. Actually, I will send you the link for the code. You can try this example if you need to.
Sasindu, I think we are running out of time. Shall we share the link?
Yeah, I shared the link.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Cool. Yeah. Hope you learned something new, and we wish you all the best with the hackathon.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sasindu, Mr. Poorna, and Mr. Gimantha for sharing your valuable insights and taking us through this enlightening session. As a token of our appreciation, we would now like to present each of you with a virtual token of appreciation for your time and contribution to making this workshop a success.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, thank you so much. And as we conclude today's workshop, I want to remind all of you that take what you learned, experiment, and push the boundaries. This competition is an opportunity to showcase your creativity, but more importantly, it's a chance to contribute to the future of technology. And if you have any more questions, feel free to ask them from our organizing committee. We are more than happy to help you. And thank you all for participating, and we look forward to seeing the amazing projects you create. Until next time, keep innovating and stay inspired. Good night, everyone.